So, this morning, I am going to be speaking out of a book of the Bible that's not very popular. Not that it's a bad book, it's short, it's small. We read it in 20 minutes probably, and we move on. I'm going to be speaking out of Habakkuk, actually. And to be honest, I don't know why. I was talking with God this week and asking, what do you want me to bring? And this book, I don't even know how this book came up. I don't remember the exact way he brought it up, but all of a sudden I'm studying through Habakkuk, and he's like, this is where I want you to go. I'm like, that's bizarre. That's really bizarre, but okay, let's go. So, Habakkuk was one of the minor prophets, right? We would consider him a minor prophet. I don't know why they use the word minor when they discuss, the major prophets and the minor prophets, and we really don't know much about the man. There's nothing mentioned about him anywhere else. In the book, it does not describe him. A lot of the other prophets, they describe their father and their lineage and stuff, but Habakkuk, there's nothing. We don't actually know a lot about him. One thing we do know about the name Habakkuk is it means one who embraces. But if you were to read the beginning of this book, you would not see him embracing very much, actually. But when we get to the end, you'll see that he is embracing who God is and what God is telling him, right? This is also the only book of the prophets that he is sharing God's message for the people. He's not delivering conviction or condemnation to anybody, but he is simply writing down a conversation he had with God. He was questioning God, and God gave him the answer. Then he questioned him some more. God gave him some more answers, and then he praised. And I think this is very important for us. What I want us to see when we look at this book is the fact where he started and where he ended up. He was in a world of terrible turmoil. This was at the end of the Assyrian Empire. Josiah had just passed away, and the Babylonians were becoming a very powerful nation, a very powerful world leader, actually. And Habakkuk is coming to God, really lamenting for his people. He could have been part Assyrian, part Israel. They're not sure exactly where he fit in because his name is different than the rest. But he was living in Judea. So he was of the Assyrian side. And he comes to God with an oracle. And what the word oracle means is burden. He has a burden on his heart. And that burden is his people. And he cares about his people. And he's asking God, how can you stand by and watch? Why? How can you do this? So we'll read through it fairly quickly because I actually want to get through the whole book today, and it's only 3 chapters. But when I was reading it, I was like, I do not know how to split this up because when one chapter ends, he's in the middle of the next statement already. So I would really like to get through the whole thing. Maybe we will skip a few verses here and there, but it's good because I believe this is a lot of us, me for sure. This is what we're going through now. God, how can you watch? How can you watch? How can you watch and do nothing? And then God's answer blew Habakkuk's mind. That's why he came to him the second time. Let's start. Verse 1. The oracle that Habakkuk the prophet received. So, how long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Or cry to you, violence, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Therefore, the law is paralyzed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous so that justice is perverted. This was his first complaint to God, so to speak. Why are you standing there watching? Why are you doing nothing? He's saying the wicked hem in the righteous. The wicked are everywhere. So we may see that in our world, right? The wicked are the ones running the law. So justice is perverted. The idea of justice being served, there is no justice actually being served for anybody. Then the Lord answered, look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe even if you were told. Here he's telling him, but he's going to say, you're not going to believe it when you see it. I am raising up the Babylonians, the ruthless and impetuous people who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwelling places not their own. They are a feared and dreaded people. They are a law to themselves and promote their own honor. Their horses are swifter than leopards, fiercer than wolves at dusk. Their cavalry gallops headlong. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like a vulture, swooping to devour. They all come bent on violence. Their hordes advance like a desert wind and gather prisoners like sand. They deride kings and scoff at rulers. They laugh at all fortified cities. They build earthen ramps and capture them. Then they sweep past like the wind and go on. Guilty men whose own strength is their God. This was not like the response that Habakkuk was looking for. He wanted God to say, I'm going to come and save you, right? Like he was looking for an answer like Moses received, right? I'm here for you. He says, no, I'm going to send an even more evil nation to come and save my people. He said, these people, they are strong, they are swift, they laugh at fortified cities. They're nothing to them. They're a powerful nation. They sweep like a desert wind. They take prisoners like sand. They take prisoners that are not even countable. There's so many grains of sand in your hand, you cannot count it. And that's what he's saying. That's how they take prisoners. They just take them like nothing. So then Habakkuk goes into a second complaint with God. O Lord, are you not from everlasting? Are you not powerful, he's saying? My God, my Holy One, we will not die. O Lord, you have appointed them to execute judgment. O Rock, you have ordained them to punish. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil. You cannot tolerate wrong. Why then do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? You have made men like fish in the sea, like sea creatures that have no ruler. The wicked foe pulls all of them up with hooks. He catches them in his net. He gathers them up in his dragnet. And so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices to his net and burns incense to his dragnet. For by his net he lives in luxury and enjoys the choicest foods. He is to keep on emptying his net, destroying nations without mercy. Now he's blaming God. You're going to use these people. You're going to use these evil people to bring judgment on us? How dare you, is what he says at the beginning, right? Are you not from everlasting, he said? Or Lord, you have appointed them to execute judgment? Them to execute judgment? The beginning of chapter 2 starts out, this is still Habakkuk. He says, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me and what answers I am to give to this complaint. He's waiting for God's answer is what he's doing. He says, I'm going to stand and wait for your answer. I want to see what you are going to do, is what he says to God. Then the Lord replied, write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end, and it will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. It says not delay. Some versions say it will not be late. But what his point is, it will be in my perfect timing. See, now he's talking about the Babylonians. He is puffed up. His desires are not upright. But the righteous will live by his faith. What? All of a sudden, in the middle of it, he's talking about the righteous will live by his faith. Because there is a remnant. In Habakkuk's first complaint, he's complaining that there's so much evil around him. And he's saying now the righteous will live by his faith. There will be a remnant left of the righteous people. Now live by your faith. Indeed, wine betrays him. He is arrogant and never at rest, because he is as greedy as the grave, and like death is never satisfied. He gathers to himself all the nations and takes captive all the peoples. Will not all of them taunt him with ridicule and scorn, saying, woe to him who piles up stolen goods and makes himself wealthy by extortion? How long must this go on? Will not your debtors suddenly arise? Will they not wake up and make you tremble? Then you will become like victims, because you have plundered many nations. The people who are left will plunder you. For you have shed man's blood, you have destroyed lands and cities and everyone in them. Woe to him who builds his realm by unjust gain, to set his nest on high, to escape the clutches of ruin. You have plotted the ruins of many peoples, shaming your own house and forfeiting your life. The stones of the wall will cry out, and the beams of the woodwork will echo it. Woe to him who builds a city with bloodshed and establishes a town by crime. Has not the Lord Almighty determined that the people's labor is only fuel for the fire, that the nations exhaust themselves for nothing? For the earth will be filled with knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. One good verse in the middle of a lot of condemnation for the Babylonians. All of a sudden, God threw in, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the seas. He's telling Habakkuk this because there's going to be, he just told him, there's going to be horses coming in swifter than leopards. They're coming to take over. They are going to destroy your city. But the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord. Because if you live by your faith, my glory will shine. Now God continues about the Babylonians. Woe to him who gives drink to his neighbors, pouring it from the wineskins till they are drunk, so that he can gaze on their naked bodies. You will be filled with shame instead of glory. Now is your turn. Drink and be exposed. The cup from the Lord's right hand is coming around to you, and disgrace will cover your glory. The violence you have done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, and your destruction of animals will terrify you. For you have shed man's blood and have destroyed lands and cities and everyone in them. Of what value is an idol, since a man has carved it, or an image that teaches lies? For he who makes it trusts in his own creation. He makes idols that cannot speak. Woe to him who says to wood, come to life, or to lifeless stone, wake up. Can it give guidance? Is it covered with gold and silver? There is no breath in it. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. Worship. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let the earth be silent before it. He's saying, worship me. Worship me and me alone, not the idols the world has produced, not the idols that they want you to worship. Worship me and me alone. This is very much our world right now. God is saying, worship me and me alone. Don't worship money. Don't worship power. Don't worship any of that stuff. Worship me and me alone. Then Habakkuk goes into a prayer. It says a prayer of Habakkuk the prophet on, I can't say that word. Lord, I have heard of your fame. I stand in awe of your deeds. O Lord, renew them in our day. In our time, make them known. In wrath, remember mercy. God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. His glory covered the heavens, and his praise filled the earth. His splendor was like the sunrise. His rays flashed from his hand where his power was hidden. Plague went before him. Pestilence followed his steps. He stood and shook the earth. He looked and made the nations tremble. The ancient mountains crumbled, and the age-old hills collapsed. His ways are eternal. I saw the tents of Cushan in distress, the dwellings of Midian in anguish. Were you angry with the rivers, O Lord? Was your wrath against the streams? Did you rage against the sea when you rode with your horses and your victorious chariots? You uncovered your bow. You called for many arrows. You split the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and withered. Torrents of water swept by the river, by the deep road, and lifted its waves on high. Sun and moon stood still in the heavens at the glint of your flying arrows, at the lightning of your flashing spear. In wrath you strode through the earth, and in anger you threshed the nations. You come out to deliver your people, to save your anointed one. You crushed the leader of the land of the wickedness. You stripped him from the head to foot. With his own spear you pierced his head. When his warriors stormed out to scatter us, glowing as though about to devour the wretched who were in hiding, you trampled the sea with your horses, churning the great waters. I heard, and my heart pounded. My lips quivered at the sound. Decay crept into my bones, and my legs trembled. Yet I will wait patiently for the day of calamity to come on the nation invading us. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes on the vines, though the olive crops fail, and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen, and no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God, my Savior. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of deer. He enables me to go on the heights. For the director of music on my stringed instruments. By verse 19 in there, things had changed. Now Habakkuk was praising in waiting. He says, I will wait. I think it's before verse 19. Verse 17. Verse 16. I heard and my heart pounded. My lips quivered at the sound. Decay crept into my bones and my legs trembled. Yet I will wait patiently for the day of calamity to come on the nation invading us. God says, I'm going to do something so amazing for you. I'm going to send your neighboring country to destroy you. Habakkuk's like, that doesn't sound amazing. That doesn't sound great. But God's point was, I want you to come back to me. This is the amazing part. Now Habakkuk's mind has changed. Now he's waiting patiently for the invading army so that the calamity to come upon the invading army. He sees what God wanted. He sees the point, the end to it all. But now he's waiting patiently for that. He is now worshiping God while waiting. This is where we need to be. We need to be worshiping while waiting. We need to be praising Lord while waiting. Now, what are we waiting for? Many people think it's the end times. Is it or is it not? It doesn't actually matter. We're still supposed to be worshiping and serving God. Habakkuk, he began with an interrogation of God, but he ends it with an intercession to God, right? His worry was transferred to worship. His fear was transferred to faith. His terror turned into trust. His hang-ups resolved into hope, and his anguish faded into adoration. So what began with a question mark, it ends in an exclamation point. His why became who. Why God? Why God? Why God? And it ended up, you God, you God, you God. This is very important. This is very important for us. This was before he didn't have the Holy Spirit leading him. He did not know that there was this. God was also talking about the coming Christ, but we have the Christ. Our issues are the same. We have lost sight of the Christ, and we need to come back to worship and serving. Part of that is communion. We are told to do this in remembrance of Christ, to do this when we are gathered together, to share in his blood and in his body. This morning, Melanie is going to lead us in communion. And as we do this, let's make sure that our hearts are right with Christ before we share in the blood. Let's make things right between us and Christ so that we can come to him with a clean slate.